room.
Oh, I thought this was a good pickup for them.
This is a great pickup for them, and it's very interesting because we talked about last week a possibility to go to Green Bay, which I thought would have been a great option for Green Bay.
Well, he would be their number one,
right.
Absolutely.
Well, he signed a one-year deal with the Saints, so he's going back to Louisiana. He will reportedly have a base salary of $3 million with the chance to earn up to $3 million more in incentives. So he's going back to Louisiana, and will have an opportunity to prove himself healthy again before he hits the market again next spring. You know, last year he had all career lows. He had a knee sprain in week 2 and said after the season that he tried to come back too soon. So he had 52 catches, 570 yards, and 2 receptions, 2 receiving touchdowns in 12 games.
He was kind of Baker's guy. I mean, to me, that was the relationship. When that didn't work, Baker didn't work.
Yes. Well, I mean, Jarvis Landry he's one of those guys that he's the soul of the team. We saw even watching Hard Knocks. He's a very vocal guy. He's a great teammate. He's somebody who's going to play obviously through injuries and give he's a heart and soul type of player. He's not somebody who's going to burn you over the top. He doesn't have that type of, flair that someone like an Odell or a Tyreek does, but he's just a very consistent player. I think that obviously that's why he's in the situation with the one-year deal with the Saints, that Jarvis was playing through a bunch of injuries, as were a lot of players in the Browns last year, obviously. But he is a good teammate and a good in-the-room guy, which is why this is a good situation for him. And they're getting Michael Thomas back. He is expected to be back healthy again for next season. So Jameis will have some options there in New Orleans. So let's talk about parity in college football, shall we?
Oh, boy.
Alabama has dominated college football since Saban's arrival in 2007. They're only one of 8 teams to win a title since then, accounting for 6 total. So if you were paying attention to the numbers there, not a whole lot of love being spread around. But Saban recognizes the lack of parity, and that is an issue with the sport.
One of the things that I'd like to see us be able to work back to is everything in college football has always had parity. Same scholarship, same academic support, healthcare, whatever it is. And, I don't think we have that balance right now, which could affect, the parity of college football and college athletics as a whole. So, and I know we got a lot of good people working on it, and I'm sure they'll come up with a good solution for us.
I always thought the parity thing was pretty easy, is that you reduce scholarships to 70 from 85, meaning the great teams only get 70. And if you make the playoffs, the following year, you get 5 less players to recruit. So everybody gets 75, 70 to 75. And people always say, well where are those kids going to go? To the other programs. Right. Remember, there's 130 programs, they'll get it. And yes, there'll be some kids that will end up playing for FCF schools, but those kids were late signees anyway. They weren't heavily recruited by the big boys. They get it on the last day of recruiting. The bottom line is, you reduce everybody 10 scholarships, let's say 70, 75, whatever it is, and if you make the playoffs, you get 5 less to recruit, meaning...
I don't know if you can penalize teams for being great.
Well, the NFL does. The NFL's like, oh, you're good, you draft last. The NFL's like, oh, you're great, you have free agent
draft,
restrictions. But salary caps.
In college football, you're rotating a part of your roster as they graduate every year.
Right.
The NFL can move pieces around. They can add pieces in free agency, which is why everyone freaking out about the transfer portal, I think, is funny. I think there is no solve for parity in college football. We talk about this all the time. Leagues try to regulate parity all the time.
Yeah.
And it never works because great is just going to be better than good, which is going to be better than terrible. And there's different reasons why different programs are good and bad. And college football and the pros are not set up the same way. There is a limited amount of teams in professional leagues. How many college football Division I programs are there?
130.
You can't regulate it the same way you do professional sports. It's not the same sport. It's not the same structure.
How about this? We have an official schedule maker. So if you win the national title, the following year you're on the road for most of your tough games, often in a row.
I mean, we've talked about this forever, that there needs to be a commissioner of college football specifically. And when you're talking about the NIL, when you're talking about the transfer portal, and you're talking about parity, we always limit these things to specifically college football because it's what we talk about the most. And then some people talk about men's college basketball as well. But they're ignoring the benefits that these type of things add to all of the other student athletes, both men and women, who are in the NCAA. So if you're going to focus the parity and the regulations and the NIL rules and all of that to focus on the 1% of the 1% of players that are in college football, then they need to separate from the rest of the NCAA. There needs to be a commissioner and different rules for this sport because it brings in so much money. Because what happens is you're going to penalize these 1% programs, and that's going to hurt the volleyball players and the lacrosse players and the swimmers because they aren't affecting the sports landscape the way that college football is.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only thing that makes money consistently.
Right. So it's just, they're two different conversations. There's a lot of nuance, obviously, that you can't find on Twitter, but I don't think it's a simple solve.
Yeah. It can't be because they've been struggling with it for 60 years. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Live
I had
News.
2 thoughts on the NFL schedules that come out. That was the only downside to missing last week. The NBA series were fine. I didn't miss much. But I missed the NFL schedule release, and 2 things jumped out at me. That's next. We all have different ideas about success. We achieve it at different times. You're young, some are older. You just changed jobs. What about retirement? Right? Retirement's a huge step. When it comes to investing for, let's say, retirement, most people can't afford to make mistakes. I can't. And you shouldn't have to do it alone. I don't. For over 130 years, Midwest-based Stifel, S-T-I-F-E-L, Stifel Financial Advisors have helped clients like you create personalized retirement plans. A lot of different options for claiming Social Security. When, how much? Implement an investment portfolio designed around your needs and timeline. That's just the beginning. As a client, you'll have access to Stifel's award-winning equity research and investment strategy views. You earn the money. Invest in your success. Find a Stifel financial advisor, S-T-I-F-E-L, at stifel.com. Here we go.
Where Colin was wrong.
Well, I love me some Chris Paul, but he just evaporated against Dallas in that series. After Game 2, he averaged 9 points and was minus 57. Like bad. And it does feel like increasingly, in every playoff series, by the end of it, he's limping off the floor. Listen, it's sports. Guys age fast. He aged fast. He's 37.
Where Colin was right.
I said John Morant. He's remarkable. I really worry about his durability, and he missed the last 3 games against the Warriors. I don't question his talent. He's very Derrick Rose. He's 174 pounds. He's not yet a great shooter. He's a small guy, wildly talented and electric, unbelievably dynamic, a blast to watch, and I love him. But this is Derrick Rose. Kind of fragile. When you don't shoot, you're not a great shooter, like a Steph Curry or a Steve Nash in their prime. You drive to the basket to score against guys that weigh 238 pounds, 268 pounds. So this kind of became twice this year, injuries, long regular season sabbatical, and a hiatus at the end of this series.
Where Colin was wrong.
Well, I took the Bucks to beat the Celtics in 7, but no Chris Middleton was just too much to overcome. And Boston, I would say this about Milwaukee. They got to get a little more athletic. I mean, Grayson Allen, no. Pat Connaughton, come on, let's get more athletic. Bobby Portis. You won a title, but in the last 6 years, you've been eliminated 4 times in 6 years, first or second round. So, and Giannis, when he's not hitting that mid-range jumper, that offense dries up really, really fast, and Boston's defense made it even tougher.
Where Colin was right.
The Nets general manager, Sean Marks, called out Kyrie Irving, who I said during the year is the only star I can think of I would trade bench players for. I think he is a chemistry killer. Here's Sean Marks last week.
I think we know what we're looking for. We're looking for guys that want to come in here, be part of something bigger than themselves, play selfless, play team basketball, and be available. And that goes not only for Kyrie, but for everybody here.
Thank you. General managers, stop pandering. Hold your ground. Be strong. Culture matters. We have now left in the NBA like 4 really good cultures. Thank you. finally, Sean Marks, and I agree with Ethan. I believe this. Kevin Durant signed off on that. There's no way this stuff's all going public without KD saying, hold that dude accountable.
Where Colin was wrong.
The Miami Heat eclipsed the Sixers. Miami's a hard get for me. They kind of outlast everybody. What Miami shows you, good coaching, good culture, deep bench, and a commitment to playing hard all the time, it matters in the NBA. They're highly functional, very smart, totally reliable. Listen, they don't have much of they're a weird offense. Like, there are times you're like, I don't know how they're going to score against Boston. I really don't. I don't know how they're going to be able to put together 100-point games against Boston's defense. But culture matters, coaching matters, commitment, bench, from Pat Riley, Spoelstra, Mickey Arison, Jimmy Butler down, you know you get their best effort every minute. Boston, Miami may not be the most gifted series of all time. It will be one of the more intense playoff series. They've yet to lose a home game in the playoffs.
Where Colin was wrong.
The Suns didn't lay an egg. They laid a dinosaur egg in Game 7. Good God, Chris Paul and Devin Booker were MIA. They looked tight. They really looked kind of off and scared, and the offense. And, one of the things you kind of find out with Devin